Two teams are bringing major upgrades to the Hungaroring, but which one will actually matter for F1 fantasy?
We've got absolutely everything that's going to leave you hungry for more as we head into the summer break.
One last push in the F1 fantasy first half starts now. McLaren are bringing what they're calling significant upgrades this weekend after Lando Norris took a penalty at Spa for a new and more reliable power electronic system. It looked like both McLarens were struggling in Belgium, but the Hungaroring is a very different circuit. Terry, how much do these upgrades move the needle for McLaren?
It's hard to tell, to be honest, because we got what's called cornering and reliability upgrades coming from McLaren. So what we're seeing is a step change, which they've involved all season long, where it's bit by bit, little by little, they're bringing small packages, check they're working, and before they move on to the next one. Obviously, the Mercedes power unit is completely separate to what McLaren have got for their upgrades, but the reality is they're looking at harvesting more energy, reliability, and focusing on the corners to get some of that speed back. So we saw some pace in Spa, to be honest. What we're not seeing is we're not seeing it on a consistent basis, so they haven't got the opportunity to take that next step and challenge for wins, but I think they might be in the chance for a podium at the Hungaroring.
If they're improving their cornering, that's going to be key for this weekend because if McLaren are genuinely back in the fight, suddenly Norris becomes a real 2x boost differential, and McLaren are only zero point 0.1 million more than Red Bull, and that makes them an easy pivot for those teams that ran Red Bull back at Spa. The other big upgrade package comes from Aston Martin. They're introducing chassis upgrades this weekend before the Honda power unit upgrades arrive at Zandvoort. This matters in F1 fantasy because Lance Stroll is already at the price floor and Fernando Alonso gained 0.6 million for the first time all season at Spa. Is this finally Aston Martin's chance to break back into the midfield?
Um, I'm not entirely sure. They are well off the pace, aren't they? I mean, it was 4 seconds at one point during last weekend. So for me, the problem you've got is it's a moving needle. We've talked about this before. Every time a team brings an upgrade, the teams around them have already developed. They've carried on going. We know that Aston Martin have literally brought nothing all season long. This is a complete reset. It's as good as a new car. It's got a brand new chassis, a brand new gearbox. Pretty much everything on that Aston Martin will be absolutely brand new. But the problem that brings is if it doesn't work, you've got so much that's brand new on that car, it's hard to figure out what that is. And that's why we talked just then about McLaren bringing little and often. It gives you a much easy benchmark to actually collect data from and to see if something goes wrong. Whereas a whole new package, if it doesn't work, you've got a whole heap of data to try and shift through and find out what the problem is. So yes, it's much needed. Yes, Aston Martin fans will be absolutely delighted. But the reality is I still think they're going to be well off the pace, even with an upgrade package. And of course, we know they got that power unit to come in Zandvoort. So even if your chassis is good, with the power unit that's so far behind, I'm not sure it's going to move the needle too much.
I wasn't optimistic about these upgrades at first, but the betting lines predict a big jump for Aston Martin. Stroll's ahead of both Cadillacs, Alex Albon, and Esteban Ocon, while Alonso's ahead of both Williams and both Haas's. So that's a huge step forward for them if it unlocks this weekend. If we see that kind of pace on Friday, we could have two new budget drivers that unlock 4A lineups. So practice is going to be really huge to see what Aston Martin have in store. At the front of the grid, the sportsbooks aren't just backing Antonelli this weekend. They're also expecting Ferrari to be much closer. Charles Leclerc and Lewis Hamilton are second and third, ahead of George Russell and Max Verstappen. Terry, is that because Hungary plays into Ferrari's strengths?
Yeah, I mean, this is definitely a Ferrari track. The best one we've seen in 2026 in terms of opportunity. It's a lot more twistier. It's not got those long straights we saw in Spa. If any track is going to play to the strengths of the SF26, it's going to be this one. But I'm not quite sure place them in front of George is where I'll put them. I mean, George has got some reliability problems, we know, but that Mercedes is still strong. So I still feel that we need to see what's going on in practice. We need to see what's going on with George's car before I decide to put Ferrari above Mercedes for this weekend. But I would say they're probably the strongest out the best for the rest so far.
We've got to keep an eye on Ferrari because not only could they fend off McLaren and be a must-have constructor in the meta lineup, but it might force a few teams to consider McLaren over Mercedes if they want coverage of those McLaren upgrades. Now, pace is only half the equation because Hungary is typically a low-scoring race in F1 fantasy. This circuit's called Monaco without walls, and while it's not as bad as the Principality, it's ranked below the median overtake total each of the last 3 seasons. There were only 4 drivers with more than 5 overtakes here last season, and 2 of them were Hulkenberg and Alex Albon, who started on the back row. So that means Tier B drivers with cost cap gain targets of 10 or more points may struggle to hit them. How important is qualifying going to be this weekend?
I think it's like Monaco. It's going to be hugely important. We're going to see probably turn one, turn two is the main overtaking zone here. Apart from that, there is a lot of other areas you're going to be able to get the jump on anyone on the track. So I think qualifying is going to be key once more. But I think also there are a few opportunities, but I think we might get more of the switcheroo we've been seeing in 2026. So that going at the start finish line into that first corner, getting it back on that second run down to turn three is probably going to be a main overtaking zone, but maybe a main overtaking zone back, if that makes sense.
Low overtaking circuits are a great opportunity to use the final fix. If your top driver qualifies outside the top five, overtaking's so difficult that they may not get back onto the podium. It's also handy if a Tier B driver qualifies high and could be on for a big score. Gabriel Bortoleto qualified P7 here last year and went on to finish P6 and get driver of the day, so he took advantage of that high qualifying position.
As always, a quick reminder from us to like, subscribe, and also to join our subscribers only club where you could get all of your lineups critiqued on air by myself and Adam.
And our members also received an exclusive video last week and got to see episodes like this before they released to anyone else. We want to thank our members that have been with us for 6 or more months, and that's Francine, Juicebox, Rick, BZ, and Race Maven. We also wanted to wish our friend Race Maven a very happy belated birthday and a special thank you for gifting us 15 new members to the channel. Thank you so much and welcome to the new members. Of course, we're not just chasing points this weekend, we're building budget too. Our first race coming out of the summer break is a sprint weekend, so there's one last push for cost cap gains to try to squeeze in a 4A lineup this weekend. In Tier A, if Antonelli isn't locked in at the top of the grid, he could struggle to hit his max price gain target of 31 points, but Lando Norris has an easier task ahead with 15 points, and Charles Leclerc even easier at -8. Over in Tier B, we've got Isaac Hadjar fresh off his career-high 38-point performance at Spa. He needs negative 11 points for another 0.6 million, and Arvid Lindblad can easily pick up 4 points, but his teammate Liam Lawson could struggle to get to 10, so we might see more teams running double Audi or bring in Franco Colapinto. Terry, we've seen Racing Bulls and Audi both running ahead of Alpine in recent weeks. Should we expect Gasly and Colapinto to take the fight back to them this weekend?
I'm not entirely sure. I saw over the weekend Alpine said they had upgrades due, but they didn't kind of allude to when they were coming. They just said they were on their way, and they were hoping it was going to reset the balance that they had at the start of the season where they were just ahead of the Racing Bulls. Racing Bulls, as we know, will make sure that Liam Lawson is on the same package that Arvid Lindblad run in Spa. Only one car had it last weekend, but both cars have it for Hungary, so that should give them a step up, plus a week's worth of data to crunch and analyse. So I still expect from what we're hearing that Racing Bulls will be ahead this weekend, but certainly after the summer break, you'd expect Alpine to start coming back a lot more, to be honest.
So Colapinto versus Liam Lawson is going to be a critical decision this weekend as we try to balance points and cost cap gain upside. Here are our buy and sell rankings for the Hungarian Grand Prix. Charles Leclerc leads all drivers in scoring over the last 2 races with 93 points, so he jumps up to the buy category. Lando Norris is actually second with 78, and he has those upgrades coming, so he moves up as well. George Russell slides down this week because he's been struggling with the car lately, and we can't count on him to compete for wins until he sorts everything out. Terry, what's one driver you're buying this week?
Oh, do you know what? I don't know, to be honest. I was looking, obviously, I've run Isaac for quite a few weeks now anyway, so I've been quite lucky that I already had him in my team kind of post Monaco. I think for me, Lando is probably the one I'm looking at the most. I feel that McLaren could throw a bit of a surprise here. We know they've gone well in Hungary before. We know that actually if the car's with them. And I still got a question mark over Lando and Oscar. I feel Oscar's been a bit unlucky over recent weeks in terms of reliability, problems with his car. He picked up damage in Spa. So he's one I've got a little bit of a question mark over. But it kind of feels you need to bring Ferrari in either as a constructor or at least as one of your drivers to get a piece of them this weekend, that's for sure.
You always find that right differential to make a move in our league, so I'm going to keep a close eye on where your mind's heading as the weekend approaches. Over in Tier B, everyone's worried about Aston Martin's reliability, but Fernando Alonso finished 6 out of his last races, including each of the last 3. Plus, he has a 3-point target to get to 0.2 million as a price rise, so he's up to the fence. And Ollie Behrman rejoins the buy category as a driver who's strung together a few really good races lately, and I see Ollie as a week-to-week alternative to Lindblad and Bortoleto. Let's bring it all together and here are the top F1 fantasy lineups for the Hungarian Grand Prix. This first team is the safe lineup. Antonelli, Hadjar, Lindblad, Colapinto, and Hulkenberg with Mercedes and Ferrari for 119.5 million. This has 3 of the top 4 cost cap gainers in Tier B and the odds-on favorite to win on Sunday. You can bring Colapinto down to Ollie Behrman, and that team costs 115.9 million. Team number 2 is for those players that are betting against Mercedes at a circuit with fewer straight mode zones. We're expecting another hot weekend, and if Mercedes' reliability becomes an issue, or the cornering strengths of Ferrari and McLaren tighten that gap to Mercedes, this would be the top differential. McLaren take the place of the Silver Arrows alongside Ferrari, Antonelli, Hadjar, Double Racing Bulls, and Behrman for 121 million. But there are plenty of options to make that more affordable. The first one I do is Lawson to Bortoletto. That brings the price down to 118.5 million. Or that same move down to Nico Hulkenberg for 114.3 million. Terry, are you thinking about a 4 lineup already, or are these teams where your mind's going so far?
At the moment, I'm probably more on this mindset where I can swap out Mercedes if I'm not happy with reliability and what we're seeing. So I don't feel I've got enough to get a really good 4A lineup. So I'm kind of still toying between another week of gathering some more cost cap and then launching it after summer break and just playing safe, keeping some good points on the table, and then just building that budget just a little bit more before I make the switch after the break.
And we're saving the best for last because I know a few of you are thinking about what a 4A lineup could look like for this weekend. I know a few of you have 120 million or more in budget and can pull this off. So, scoring leader Kimi Antonelli anchors this team, and he's running alongside the top driver over the last 2 races in Charles Leclerc, Arvid Lindblad, and 2 price floor drivers in Nico Hulkenberg and Lance Stroll. It's with Mercedes and Ferrari and costs 121.2 million. We're going to see it soon. I can feel it. Terry, what's the one thing you're watching for in Friday practice?
That Aston Martin. I mean, that lineup looks good, but that Aston Martin still has some big question marks. We talked about not getting the engine yet. So for me, it's still a little bit risky. I think most people are running Hulkenberg. We saw last weekend when George Russell went out, most of the top teams actually had Mercedes in there, so it didn't make so much of an impact. So for me, I think we need to just see what's going with the team, see what's happening. I think for me, I've still got that big question mark over Aston Martin, so I'll probably hold off because of that. But I can see some people running it just to see if they can get some points, to be honest.
We'll be back for our final live Q&A stream of the first half this Saturday at 9 a.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. in the UK, right here on the FanAmp YouTube channel. Thanks so much for watching.